Hello, I am Dan and this is Green DM. In Dungeons & Dragons and most other high fantasy role-playing games, player characters are much stronger than the normal elf, orc, or human that surrounds them. Of course, this always has a limit, and for Dungeons & Dragons, that's reaching level 20. Mechanically, this makes sense. Wizards of the Coast doesn't want to have to make an infinite number of abilities for each class, and level 20 is already near demigod status for player characters in Dungeons & Dragons, so moving far beyond that would probably cause most of the mechanics to start to collapse. So the mechanics of being limited to level 20 makes sense, but why would narratively a character never reach level 21? Today, I want to try and give you inspiration to handle that in your campaign and your setting. This may never come up for your player character specifically. It is very difficult for a campaign to get to level 20. However, this could explain why previous heroes in your campaign or setting are not coming forward to defend the world from the evils you are putting forth in the adventure as it stands. Before we start, aging is of course a reason that any adventurer would stop, adventuring, but since elves can live hundreds of years and Warforged can live probably indefinitely, I don't think that's the most exciting way to retire a character. So without further ado, let's jump into reasoning for each class as to why they only ever reach level 20. To start with, Barbarians. This is a martial warrior class that gets most of its power from its ability, Rage. This is noted in the player's handbook as a primal ferocity, in which a barbarian erupts into intense violence to survive things that would kill others and land blows that are excruciatingly powerful. A barbarian will burst into this state of rage dozens if not hundreds of times over their adventuring career. Each instance of this rage only ends when the barbarian has no more enemies to cut down and no more wounds to weather. The emotional source of a barbarian's rage can come from many places, but it's always fed by a cycle of violence and death. But what if the barbarian becomes numb to that cycle? They may burst into a rage only to find that they feel nothing for the enemies they slay and no pain for the wounds that carve across their sea of scars. And soon thereafter, the rage never starts in the first place. They have been pushing so emotionally, so intensely for so long that it is all flooded out of them and all that is left is calm. They are free of this rage that has held them for years. That is the limit and the end I envision for barbarians, not one of destruction and death, but one of calm and self-reflection. Some barbarians could return to their tribes of origins and live out a simple life with simple tasks and simple pleasures, but still find fulfillment. Maybe their past will find them there and continue a cycle of violence they abided by for so long. Maybe a young group of adventurers will find a barbarian in an old remote home, searching for answers to questions that were buried at the same time that the old one's rage was. No matter what, this barbarian cannot bring themselves to the ferocity they once felt. Instead, they build a life that is simple and can be cherished, instead of the one that they had before that was filled with destruction and unnecessary anger. For bards, I see them as having two possible endings when they reach the height of their power. They either go the way of the rock star, living fast and dying young, or they entrance the very heavens above with their performances. First, the rock star. As you may know, substance abuse is a big topic of discussion in the real world in the entertainment industry. And I believe in fantasy settings, there's going to be a lot more dangerous drugs and vices that a bard or other people could fall into. Perhaps it is not a simple overdose on simple drugs that ends the life of a rock star bard, but instead they become a gaseous form through a strange cocktail, or they become shrunk to the size of a flea and unknowingly forgotten. No matter what, the rockstar bard took a step too far in the chase to reach an ever more difficult high. If a world-famous bard is not the type to party with dangerous levels of intoxication, perhaps their legendary performances will charm the very gods. After one truly beautiful performance, an angel may come down from Mount Celestia and beckon the bard to it, so that they may perform for the gods above just as they perform for the denizens of the material plane. If this invitation is rejected, demons and devils may soon hunt the bard, for Asmodeus needs a minstrel for his court. Either willing or unwillingly, this bard will come to live in the outer planes, far from the troubles of the material. Speaking of outer planes and gods, this is where a powerful cleric would end up when they ascend beyond mortality. For a cleric to receive an ever-increasing wealth of divine power, they must exemplify some tenet of the god they worship. As they are granted power and continue to exemplify a tenet or a set of tenets, they become a living saint for that tenet. With this rise to sainthood, a cleric travels to their god's domain and serves them there, for a saint has much to do and many faithful to shepherd. This saint will be able to provide boons and blessings to those of the material plane and beyond, but they will be given over a wide berth of people over such a long time that the people they once followed and adventured with may believe them to be of little consequence. With that, the cleric is limited when they change from the needs of the few to the needs of the many. Druids will have a similar ascension to that of a cleric, but instead of ascending to the domain of the gods, they will ascend to a force of nature for the place they protect. Druids are in tune with nature. That is why they can become natural beasts when they need to, and they can cast spells that grow the nature around them. The more powerful the druid, the more powerful the beast that they can become, and the more powerful the spell that they can create from nature. Until one day the druid goes beyond transforming into beasts and transforms into nature. Perhaps they would become a great tree that sinks its roots into the earth for miles, feeling the forest around it and any and all that come through it. A guardian that has become one with what they protect, and perhaps a guide for those lost within its woods. A fighter will be ravaged by time far more easily than most other classes, for it takes intense physical training and martial discipline to reach the heights of a fighter's capabilities. Maybe there is a limit for such things, for the youth lack experience and the old lack vigor. However, even a fighter with years before losing their youthful edge may find their priorities shifting. Instead of facing an enemy as one, they may be able to train and lead others so they may face the same enemy as one of 10,000. Rising to generalship means a focus on battle strategy, logistics, and communication. The fighter will still find themselves drawing their sword, but far more often they will be overlooking maps and speaking to officers. And as they sharpen their strategic vision, their sword will dull. Monks, much like fighters, gain power from honing their bodies. Unlike fighters, they also gain power from honing their spirit and using the key within themselves and all living things. A monk's greatest weapon to hone their spirit is meditation. But meditation is a calm, slow process, and it can take centuries to fully understand one's spirit and self, especially when the body, as it changes the spirit. To achieve full understanding of one's self and become enlightened, a monk may project themselves into the astral plane and meditate there. For there, in the sea of nothing, there is only the self. The body left behind craves not for food or air or sleep. Thus, long meditation can be done. And with this meditation, every aspect of the spirit may be known, may be felt, and may be understood. But this astral plane can be ruin, for the astral dreadnoughts, beings before time, walk it. A monk, deep in meditation, may never see them coming through the empty void, coming for their silver cord, cut forevermore from their bodies. If their silver cord is not severed, perhaps the dreadnought will simply consume them, and they will lie within its donjon till their death. But if a monk avoids such a gruesome fate, they can come to understand the true identity of the spirit, and how it perpetrates all things, just as Ki does. When they return to their body, it dissipates, for they no longer have use of it. Instead, they spread their Ki and spirit into all things, be it plant or animal, demon or devil, god or man. This blanket of spirit from a single body is minuscule on the cosmic scale, but over the far future it will shape things to come. And so the monk is limited, for when it truly understands itself, it loses that self. A paladin's focus on the self is different from the monk's, for it is only half of its whole. A paladin's power comes as much from a commitment to justice as it does from the god that they follow. The end and limit to a paladin should follow such words, for good or for ill. A paladin's commitments may come to symbolize the tenets of the god they follow. And when their power is unmatched on the material plane, they are pulled into their god's dominion so that they may become a warrior angel, forever fighting the demons and devils that cause so much injustice in the planes below. Perhaps a cleric or another of the faithful will call upon this god in a time of need, and this paladin will be their answer. A holy warrior, clad in light, come down to defend the tenets they defended once in life. Or perhaps a paladin will fall from grace, as it is so easy to do for others, and break their oath. This is difficult for a paladin, for their oath is tied to their very deepest held beliefs. To break such an oath requires intense stress, trauma, or deception. No matter the cause, a paladin that is not held firm to their oath is but a simple soldier, and so they will be a simple soldier from now on. The final possible limit for a paladin is that they no longer need to uphold their oath, for it has been completed. Vengeance has been done, the darkness has been slayed, and peace is upon the land. This success releases the paladin from their powers, for they no longer need them. In the next time of need, let another don the mantle of courage and become a holy knight. This paladin shall rest, and when their final days come, and they look back fondly, they will know that they triumphed over the forces of evil. Rangers may not be so lucky. They must protect from an endless horde of monsters causing destruction in the material plane and the planes beyond. For every beast killed before it can enter a town, for every monstrosity killed before it can consume another victim, for every demon banished from the realms of men, another will arrive. Yet a ranger lives on fighting this inevitable truth, if only to delay it another day. That inevitable truth will lead to the ranger's inevitable end. Whether the monsters wear down the ranger or time does, it does not matter. One day they will lie dead in the place they once protected as monsters roam past them. And those creatures will strike into civilization or tear through the forest until another ranger rises to defeat them. Just as a ranger will fall to an endless horde of monsters, so shall a rogue fall to the endless cruelty of their fellow man. A cruelty the rogue cultivates early when they learn to steal and kill and cheat. Whether a rogue learns these things to simply survive a helpless situation or claw their way to the top is irrelevant. They will always incur a debt from such things, a debt that can only be paid in blood. A rogue at the top of a criminal organization will see themselves the target of rivals, from within and from without. An assassin rogue may tie up all the loose ends for a mission, only to find themselves the last one needing tying. Even those that escape such traps will find their debt sneak up on them, just as they snuck up on others hundreds of times before. For the world of a rogue is dog eat dog, and one day they will be devoured. A sorcerer is much more likely to be devoured by their own power than an outside threat. Though, depending on the source of their power, this may come as a welcome change. Divine, draconic, and storm sorcerers allow their mortal forms to be consumed, for it allows them to become a new state of being. Those of a divine soul may see themselves become a demigod or a true god in time. Those of a draconic bloodline may unleash their powers fully to become a true dragon. With this transformation comes immense power, but also ego and an intoxication with one's own nobility. Sorcerers of the storm become the heart of a never-ending tempest of rain and lightning. They float above the land as all storms do, detached from what occurs below, yet still affecting it. Sorcerers of wild magic and shadow magics are not so willing to give in to their power. A wild magic sorcerer is forever on the precipice of annihilation, be it of their allies, their enemies, or themselves. Without meaning to, they may tear open the spaces between planes, flooding the material world with whatever lies within. Or they may erupt in a great inferno, engulfing the city streets around them. For fear of these outcomes, they may be hunted by god and man alike. Or they may resolve themselves to never use their magics again, for fear that they may become the destruction they once protected the world from. Shadow magic sorcerers, on the other hand, may not use their magics to stem the tide of darkness growing within themselves. Each spell they cast pulls dark energy from the shadow fell, and with it allows that energy to cling to the sorcerer. In the darkest nights, shadows may creep into the very heart of that sorcerer, turning it pale, black, and lifeless. This fate may not be stopped, but it can be halted if the sorcerer enters the Fey Wilds, a place with energy that is in opposition to the shadows within the sorcerer's heart. But there the sorcerer must remain forever, lest the shadows creep any deeper. Warlocks have the opposite problem of sorcerers, for their own power may not devour them, but that which gifts it, their patron, may. Each time a patron gives a warlock power, there is chance that that warlock will have enough power to oppose the patron. Perhaps giving out such power is worth the risk, for the warlock is close to completing a goal the patron has. If the patron cannot stand a warlock retaining these gifts after the patron's goal is completed, then they will be in conflict, for a warlock will not wish to relinquish that which they have gained. This will only end with either the warlock or patron destroyed. If the warlock survives the struggle, they may take up the mantle of patron and give to those as they were once given. And as this power is given, they know it could mean their end if given too freely. For no matter how much they give, such a transaction will not give power in return. The downfall of a wizard is similar to that of a warlock's, in that it requires them to gain the power that they have sought for so long. With their endless study of the arcane, wizards hope to reach spells that the mind is too mortal to contain, for those are for the gods to wield. Of mortals, only a wizard or a sorcerer at the height of their power can bend reality to their wishes, imprison the very deadliest of foes for millennia, or rain hellfire for miles. Sorcerers avoid the danger of such magics by either becoming something beyond mortal or succumbing to their power before it can affect them. Wizards have no such respite, and their mind can only hold for so long. Eventually, the mind buckles under the immense strain of holding such magical glyphs, incantations, and energy. A wizard's mind, once their most prized possession, will become the prison that they cannot escape from. Recent memories become a fog of forgotten shapes and faces. Conversations held moments ago become but mist of the mind. This process cannot be stopped, even if a spell is never uttered by the wizard again, for their mind is cracked and it will flow out. As memories and thoughts fade and the world becomes a land of mysteries, the mind spurts, gasping for thought. And from those gasps come some of the magic held longest and deepest. Balls of fire erupt without a word, magical barriers are erected with the slightest gesture, and darts of magical energy fire at friend and foe alike. The dangers such a wizard possesses to the nearby civilizations will cause them to be hunted. If a wizard afflicted by arcane dementia survives the assassins and bloodthirsty mobs, all they have to look forward to is a continual decay of their mental function. This is what makes so many powerful wizards seek lichdom. Not only does becoming a lich give them reprieve from death, but it allows them to use their immense arcane power for centuries instead of years or months. With that, every class is now limited for a reason. Some are limited by their focus shifting away from themselves to leading or protecting the world around them. And with this, there is always the chance of betrayal cutting their lives short. Others will find themselves consumed by a power they wielded for so long, a raging inferno that cannot be controlled. Yet others will be willingly consumed so that they may be reborn into a new form. But this new form will care little for the wants and needs of what came before it. Perhaps the best off heroes are those that simply stop fighting. Instead, they live into old age, following mundane patterns to carry out mundane tasks and finding comfort in them. No matter the hero and their limit, they will be legendary when they meet that limit. And when their story is told, it will be one of a legend. And that story, that legend, will be limitless. Hopefully this inspires you to think about where your player characters are going to end up, or why they alone face the evil on their doorstep. If this does inspire you to make something for your campaign, please give the video a thumbs up, as it helps get the video shown to others that might also get inspired. I would love to see other narrative approaches as to why these classes are limited to level 20. If you have such an idea, please leave it in a comment down below. Subscribe for more videos and click the bell to stay up to date with my uploads. That's it, and once again, thank you.